Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first World Wide Writeathon chat number 1. We are a couple of dark and LGBTQ plus authors, and I guess I should let everyone introduce themselves. I will start. My name is Kaylee Canoe. I am an adult dark fantasy LGBTQ plus author. I'm also an author tuber, an aerialist, and a gamer. And yeah, that's what I got for now. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Probably at some point. Do you want to go or should I, or should we just flip a coin?
You go ahead and go. I'll go out. I'll go
Gee, thanks for throwing me under that bus.
You asked.
Okay, so hi, my name is VALE, or I write under the name V. ASTOR Solomon, or I formerly wrote under the name V. Medina. I am a queer author of short, weird, speculative fiction. There we go. That's me. Goodbye.
Yay!
Fantastic. I'm Blue COUTELL. I write dark fiction. I'm one of them multi-genre types. I write a little bit of everything, but it's usually pretty dark, and usually no one wants to read it because it's too dark for them. That's what I have in common in all my fiction. Other than writing, I don't know. I'm living the polyamorous lifestyle, so that takes up all of my time now.
I feel that deeply.
Yeah, that's all I got. All I do is love people all day. That's all I do. Hard life.
Look, sometimes you need flowcharts for when you're in polyamorous relationships, and that is a lifestyle right there. Just the flowcharts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my polycule is not too complicated at the moment, so that's good news.
I'm still at that place in poly where it's like I keep looking for other people to add, but like that just doesn't keep working out. Like it's like finding people is just so hard because dating is so hard, and I'm just like, please join us. We want all of the love, and it's like
Yeah.
People like think that when you're looking for poly that it's just like a sex thing, and they're like, oh, you're poly, so we can just do the thing, and I'm like, no,
it's not.
There's more than that, dear.
Right. And welcome everyone in the chat. It's nice to have you guys. So I do have a list of some questions that we can go through that are like LGBTQ / author-ish related. And anyone who's here in the chat, if you guys have any questions that you want to ask us or anything you'd like to hear us talk about, drop them in the comments and we will address it because, yeah, that's what we're here for. So we'll start off super generically. And my first question for everyone here is, what makes a book LGBTQ plus? Like, in your mind, what does it mean to be considered an LGBTQ book?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing is representing, like, whatever faction of such you're going to be using in your book, like, representing it in a healthy, respectful, almost low-key informative way, you know? Does that make sense? I think is important. I was listening. Okay, so I was listening to a polyam podcast because that's all I do now, and they had on this author who was neither polyamorous nor bisexual, but he wrote a book about this couple deciding that this woman can be bisexual so she can have a male and a female counterpart to love forever, right? Which in theory sounds okay, but the more I was thinking about it, the more I'm like, you just assume because she identifies as bisexual that she has to have the other partner in order to function. Like, she has to have it or she's just never gonna be okay again. And I was just like, that's a really strange way to go about it. And even stranger that he was bisexual himself. Like, it didn't seem to me that he had any kind of like sensitivity reading, because the more I was hearing about this book, the more I was kind of really scared of the book, to be honest. Like, have you ever met a bisexual person who actually talked to you about the experience of being bisexual, or are we just going out on a limb here? Like, I don't know. It was really
throwing darts at a wall. Oh, look, I hit the
yeah,
buy
I was
button.
like, I don't know that this represents who I am as a bisexual person, but not my personal experience.
Yeah. And I know for me, it's like, I want the representation, but I don't necessarily like need it to be in my face. I just need it to be there somewhat, ideally on page. I would like it to be on page more often, but, you know, I can deal with hints. I come from a Fanish background. I'm used to, you know, reading into the text. I'm pretty lenient though. I know for me it's very much just like I ideally would want it on page. What it comes right down to is queer fiction for me is very much showing stuff more than like having to nitpick and poke around and figure out like, okay, this is actually textual versus subtext.
Yeah, I agree. For me, I actually agree with some of these people in the chat here, where I would consider it LGBTQ plus if like any of the main characters fall along that spectrum. Because I know like not all books necessarily include the romance or like relationships. But you know, having that as part of the character for me makes it in that genre.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that it can get kind of dicey with the representation as far as like the authors who are writing it, because like on one end it's like, yeah, those you know, cis hetero people should probably like do some research first before they write it, or have sensitivity readers for that kind of thing. But I don't know, it's also one of those things too where like everyone has their own like experiences when it comes to like being queer or being in the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I feel like I write a lot of various queer, gay, romance and experiences, and it's like I know that like my experience in the world is different than everyone else's. So like I don't know. There are probably some people who are bi who are like, I need to have one of each in my life to feel whole. But they're probably also poly if that's the case. Because I feel like that's probably the thing where it's like, that is representation of someone who is both bi and poly. And for them, they want one of each. Versus like everyone who's bi does not need to have one of each. They just are attracted to both and they'll find whichever one they fit with. Or multiples if they're poly, because everyone's poly, right?
Everyone's poly in my mind. And then I realized, oh, right, that's not how the world works.
If everyone was poly, a lot of books would not exist.
I mean, how many love triangles can be solved with, and then they were poly? Like, seriously. I also, you brought up a point about basically like heteronormative people writing. I will also argue though that you do not have to disclose your queerness to write queer stories, because that I don't think that should not be a big hindrance to writing queer fiction, because you shouldn't have to come out as some flavor of queer to write these stories. Like, if you're not ready to come out, you're not ready to come out, and you have every right to keep that to yourself.
I agree with this. And not everyone has labels either. So, or some people are flexible. I would say myself personally, like I can't really claim a label. I somehow was just like, I guess we'll go with non-binary, but it just like depends on the day for me. And like the older I get, the longer I'm in like the kink community, the more flexible I am with just everything. And I'm just like, I don't know. I can't find a label that like encompasses everything.
I like fluid.
Yeah.
Just, that is my label. My label is fluid.
Yeah. And then in the comments, we got, oh, I missed the first one. There we go. As someone who includes a bunch of LGBTQ characters, I think it requires the orientation to be the focus. I don't consider my novels LGBTQ because they are focusing on the sci-fi plot. Mutant series doesn't really have cis straight white men anywhere noticeable, but the plot is about the fact that mutants exist. So is it an LGBTQ story or a sci-fi story? I would say both, but that's just my personal opinion because technically my book that I have written is a dark fantasy, but there is a lot of like LGBTQ romance and a lot of the characters are on the spectrum somewhere. And even though like it is a fantasy book with a fantasy main plot, like there is enough representation in there to where I feel like it falls into that genre. I mean, I guess it would be at least a subgenre. And it's one of those things where like, I don't know. I just think that anything that really shows and includes the LGBT spectrum in the book would be considered that because, you know, previously the representation's been lacking in the media.
Well,
it's like,
and I would also, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good.
I would also argue that, you know, the romance doesn't necessarily have to be there because frankly, there are, you know, there are ace people, there are aro people, there are all those types of people who don't necessarily need the romance aspect to be considered queer. And I will fight people who say otherwise.
Yes. I agree with this. My main character in my book is, he is on the ace spectrum. He's mostly dimmy, but he's on the ace spectrum. And like at the beginning of the book, he makes this comment about like basically being repulsed by the fact that like people are sexually attracted to him and he just doesn't understand it. He's like, I don't like, why are you, stop it. Stop fantasizing about me in your mind. It's gross. Like, not in those words, but it references something like that. So
yeah.
Not everybody wants to do the diddle. But yeah. I'm like trying to read these comments. They're so long. Yes. Yes. Writing mom agrees. Absolutely. Absolutely. Fun. And since we are kind of co-author topicing, my next question is in regards to dark fiction. So, what would you guys consider makes a book dark, or what does a book need to have or include for you to consider it to be a dark piece of fiction?
For me, it's generally writing about topics or subjects that a lot of people tend to avoid or want to pretend doesn't exist. And I usually feel like I haven't done my job unless somebody decides they don't want to read what I've written, because I don't know, I guess I'm into the shock of it too. But I don't know, I think it just needs to be a little off center of what traditional mainstream stuff is. Not even mainstream, just stuff in general, because most people don't write dark fiction. So just being a little left of that.
I guess for me, dark fiction can qualify as anything that kind of gets under your skin. Like, does it sit there and make you think, wait, what did I just read? Why did, what? You know, it kind of has that moment of, wait, did that happen? Oh, yeah, that definitely just happened. Oh, okay, we're going to go with that now. And then, you know, if it's good dark fiction, you feel compelled to keep reading because you're like, well, what's going to happen next?
Yeah, that little psychological touch where it's like, it makes you think about something, or you're like, oh man, that's a thing, but like, also for me, I really like when you're pointing out the flaws in society, right? Where like it's a dark theme, but like it also happens in the world. So like for me, I like being able to shine that little light on the bad parts of human nature that, you know, widely exist, and people kind of just try to ignore the fact that like it's a real thing in society. So I love dark fiction. Plus, you know, the blood and the gore and all that goodness. All of that.
Dark fiction as a commentary on humanity is just so good. It's so good.
I love it. I love the dark, like the social topics.
Love it.
Ooh, here we go. Writing Mom classifies dark fiction as handling topics or themes in a bleak, serious, or heavy manner. Yes. Can't really depend on whether or not it affects me, because then almost nothing would count. I kind of feel that on like a level, because most of the time, like I watch things and read things, and like, I don't know, things don't shock me. Things do not shock me at all. Like
I will argue that shock doesn't necessarily have to be the main factor, because some people find dark fiction cathartic. I know I do. Sometimes it's, I need to see the dark, creepy ass things that come up and see either those people get through them or not get through them, and take comfort in the fact that, well, at least my life's not as bad as that.
Right? Right. And then we got Jenna Moresi writes great dark fantasy. I agree with this. I love the book, and I love the plot twist, and I'm happy about it. And that's all I'm going to say. But yeah, so more questions. I have so many questions on here. Not really. I only have a few, but they're just like such like deep questions, I feel like sometimes. Okay. Getting personal here, since we both fall under, or we all fall under this, is why? Why do you write LGBTQ and or dark fiction? I guess we could break that into two questions. We'll do the LGBTQ part first. So why do you write it? Why is writing it important to you?
Well, I guess I've never written any other way. So like when I started writing forever ago, like however many decades ago that was, like I've just always written what comes naturally to me, and dark stories are what come naturally to me. And the fact that a good number of them have, you know, themes of LGBT plus, right, are just directly from like what, like I've never really thought about it. Like if you've, I don't know, clearly you all have read my book Daisy Chains, but for those who have not, it's about two women who are coming to terms with their attraction to women. However they want to define that is up to them. But like I didn't even really make the conscious decision that was going to be how I was writing a lesbian relationship. That was not a conscious decision that I made at all. It just made two characters that I thought would work really well together that just happened to be male and female. That's, I mean, I hate to like simplify it that much, but that's just how it works in my writing life. Like it just felt right. It just, don't question it. It's just what it is. So
I'm kind of with you on that. Like, I'm not a person who does like heavy outlining or character profiles or anything. I just kind of write the things that hop in my brain. And eventually, if I really feel compelled to, you know, try and sort out, well, you are this, that, and the other, then so be it. But frankly, it's like, oh, I have this queer woman who's in a polyamorous relationship and also in love with a sentient mushroom. Okay.
Exactly like that.
Like, I'm not gonna try and I'm just gonna write what comes to me, and what comes to me is usually some flavor of queer and some flavor of weird.
I feel that real hard. Like For me, I feel like the representation, like, I don't think I realized it when I first like got the concept for this book, but like now that I've like written it, and even just like the older I get and the more like fluid I am, I just, looking back, like I'll see something in the media and I'm like, God, why couldn't I have seen something like that when I was younger? Like, it would have been so helpful for me because, like, you know, I didn't know and I didn't see it represented anywhere. And like seeing, I think it was Polly. I saw Polly in a TV show recently and was like, wish this was around when I was in high school. Because I got so much trouble. So like for me, it's important to have it in there just because like you might have that impact on that person who picks up your book and like now they're being represented. And the other part is, you know, it's a little bit of write what you know, so writing from your own personal experiences. And I think it's pretty easy to end up writing on the spectrum when you live on the spectrum and associate with lots of people on the spectrum. But like as far as like specifics, I think on my character cards these days, I will write down their orientation just so that like I know. But for like my main characters, it really just was whatever, like it was what fit with them. Like originally concept for The Reckoning, the male and female characters were love interests, which is a straight couple. But along the road, developing my male character's personality and like his struggles and his character arc, I realized that he was actually like an ace character or a demisexual character, and it fit with his personality. It made sense for the way he behaved with the world, and so yeah, that's how that happened for me anyway. So, and I really just love boys love.
Yeah,
like,
you do.
I feel like at this point, I'm like, I don't think I'll ever write anything that doesn't have male on male like romance in it. Like,
The world needs you.
that's just what I identify with. Actually, that was like the first thing when I was younger. The very first thing that I ever like said that was like on the spectrum was, even though obviously born female, I was like, I identify mostly with gay men, like personality wise and like interest wise. I was like, I am a gay man. Yeah, so that's how that happened, I
Your
guess.
truth.
Yeah.
The real truth. Yes, Nikki, feel it. Most of the characters I grew up reading weren't like me. Yes, I feel that. That's why it's so important for us to write these things so that we can, you know, help the younger generations or our generation. I read adult fiction, so, you know.
Well, I mean, it's like that adage of, you know, write the things that you wanted to read. It's like, you know, you wanted and needed these things when you were growing up or even now, and you can give that to someone else and you can give it to yourself.
Yes, I 100% agree with this comment. I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I explicitly write stories that I would want to read and characters that like I want to like experience their story. Like, I am a selfish author. I'm not writing my stories for the world. I'm writing my stories for myself and then sharing them with the world once I'm happy with them.
Yes, this, so much this. I like when other people read my stuff, but I would write my stuff anyway.
Yep.
I would write it for me. And then if other people like it, that's fantastic. But if no one ever read anything I wrote, I would still be writing.
Yeah. And it's one of those things too where like, even though you're writing something that isn't mainstream, you know, like there's a niche for everything. Like if it's a story that you would want to read and it's compelling and you like it, I guarantee you there are other people out there that will also like it. It's just a matter of finding them and getting your book in their hands, which is the hard part, arguably.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah. And then this comment that I put up so I wouldn't forget about it. Needed stories of trans characters when I was younger. It would have been wonderful if I saw fantasy characters who went through what I went through, so I write it myself. And yes, I love this. This is what we're all about. Sharing experiences and like, I don't know, age of technology, that so much easier to access information these days. So it's wonderful to share that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, no one is so unique that no one else wants to read their niche. Agreed.
I need to be reminded of that so much. Somebody will want to read this.
Ping me and I will just send. I will screenshot that and just shove it at you.
Right? Like, I feel this so much. It totally just like relates to like I'm in the BDSM world, the BDSM community, and it's one of those things where it's like, don't kink shame people because there's somebody out there that has your kink. No matter how obscure you think it is, somebody else also wants it. Okay.
Yep.
Just saying. Oh, okay. All right. Since we are already kind of talking representation, what do you wish you saw more of in the media? Or even still, we could discuss things that you feel like are being misrepresented in the media in relation to the LGBTQ plus spectrum.
Intersectionality. Like, not just LGBTQ characters. Like, I'm LGBTQ, I'm disabled, I'm mixed race, I'm a lot of different things that I don't see. You know, I would love to see intersectionality mixed in with that stuff.
It is true, though. A lot of the times, at least in the scope of what I read or catch, like, there is just like a singular focus on one thing, right? You never really see too much like this, and this. Like, even though it's normal for a person's identity to be more than just this little sliver of whatever the spectrum is, right? I don't know. That's a good point to make.
I feel that. Yeah, I definitely wish that poly was represented more, personally, because that would have saved me as a child.
Yes.
I just want more of it.
I would be okay with that.
But also like healthy versions of it as well, where like it's actually like a healthy, functional poly relationship, and it's not just like a like monogamous couple trying to like try poly to like save their relationship or whatever, because that's disappointing. Like, I just want them to all be in a happy little poly dynamic. And there's like so many different ways to do poly too, that I just feel like that could also be represented better in the media, that like there's no like one right way to do poly. Like, there are various different like dynamic setups. But like, I feel like the same is true of BDSM. And like,
I was just gonna say that.
I can't even get on this tirade right now because it'll get bad. But like the misrepresentation, because I know 50 Shades of Grey got out there and it like brought like knowledge of the community to like the vanilla world, and everyone's like,
It was not the right knowledge.
Grey, and you're like, please, no, that's not really what BDSM is. Like, that was a non-consensual relationship, and like all we care about is consent. And also, it's not about sex. It is not about sex. Anytime I talk to someone new and they're like, oh, you're kinky, so you like freaky sex? No, my sex and my kink are separated, please. Better representation would be great for that. Which is why I'm going to write it after this fantasy thing is done.
Can I also put in like happy BDSM? Not like, just give me happy poly BDSM relationships. I will be so happy.
Yes, happy, healthy.
Yes.
I don't know. I have thoughts that I want to do a kitchen table poly story, like short story or something. And for those who don't know, that just means that like your partners and you are all commingling in one cohabitation, or still in a very like habitational way, even if it's not direct. Anyway, I was thinking of doing that, but then I'm like, well, I'm not the person to write this because I'm gonna like make it so dark. Like, what am I gonna do to these people?
Here's the thing: is I've had the same thought process, and if for the same reasoning, I haven't done it. Like, I'm in a kitchen table poly relationship, and I'm like, this is the happiest version of this I will ever get, because I cannot write it. I can live it, but I can't write
their
it.
lives.
Right?
I mean, I feel like it's still worth writing that though, like even though if it is dark fiction, because like it's still representation, right? And the whole point of like fiction and like reading stories is that like it is different, or dark fiction specifically is shining the darker lights on things, right? So like still having that representation but also shining the light on the darker things is equally important, because poly is just like everything else, and like there are like the downsides and the bad sides to that too, and there are the darker aspects, because we're all human regardless of our relationship type, and society still like teaches you a lesson on stuff. I don't know. I feel like dark fiction is great for like teaching lessons about things, and even just like bringing forth things that people didn't understand. So like if you write something that's really dark in relation to like poly people, like you might be spreading word about the issues that poly people face and get people to start thinking about it. So,
And I mean, I could also argue that in theory, if it was something that I was ever going to do, like, the poly doesn't have to be the dark aspect.
exactly.
It can be
happy relationship,
bad circumstances surrounding said relationship, but the relationship could be a stable, functional, healthy thing.
Yes.
Well, we'll see when Nano rolls around, won't we?
Pushing you to do it. Pushing you to do it.
I'm coming for you, November.
Gosh. Oh, man. Okay. What else do we got? Ooh, trigger warnings for dark fiction. Do you use them? Do you need them? And like, do you think that there's like a standard of things that like people can just like generically expect to be in there, and therefore you don't really need to like put a specific trigger warning on it? Or I guess just like what are your thoughts on trigger warnings for dark fiction?
I'm going to come at this. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, you go on.
Okay. I'm going to come at this kind of honestly, coming from a kind of kink perspective of, it's about consent. Like, for me, trigger warnings are, you are going with informed consent into the book.
That's fair.
I very much second that. I've always been a big advocate for trigger warnings, especially because, like, I don't know, it wasn't until pretty recently that I think people have even given a shit about trigger warnings in books. Because, like, you get them on TV all the time now. Like, like, this is what this Netflix show says might be triggering to you. Like, that is a normal thing. Like, I think shows have to have those. Like, network shows have to have those things. And I think that in some regard, maybe there should be some kind of regulation, because I think it's important, because no one wants to stumble upon something that's going to trigger them into a thing that spirals them, because that is a really hard thing to get out of. Even if it's like not intentional, or if it's even like seemingly innocent, for lack of a better word, like you don't know what's going to really affect that person. So if you can at least hit the broad strokes, I think that's helpful. However, you were saying like what like there are some things like smoking, for example, that could be triggering, but is regarded as something that is inconsequential enough that we don't include a trigger warning for, right? So to me, that's like the most obvious one is smoking. But I don't know. Like, that's a good question. Like, what is, like, where is that line? Because I'm not sure where that line is. I just cover all my bases that I can, like, think of just to, you know, do my due diligence. But, I mean, I probably overdo it, to be honest.
I like the idea of tags as much as I like trigger warnings. Like, okay, my thing has substance abuse, my thing has happy poly, and my thing has a dog death. All of these things be tagged, and you can choose to read it or not, but it gives you an idea of like what you're getting into. And sometimes, honestly, those can be used as marketing as much as anything else, because someone can decide, I need this happy poly relationship with a dog death. Give it to me.
Yeah, that's
Don't
fair.
ask me why I went there.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I definitely think that like trigger warnings are important. But I also like didn't put any on my book. Like I didn't put any on the actual book because like I don't know, I didn't really know where to put it or what to put on there. But that being said, like I have people who reviewed my book and added a bunch of trigger warnings in the comments that are absolutely valid. I guess part of it for me is it's like, what is the fine line between trigger warning and like plot spoiling? I guess like because I feel like when I mention my book and I'm like, all right, guys, there's gonna be reverse rape. It basically just like spoils an entire chapter, but I guess that could be pretty triggering. So I could see why you would put that in there, but yeah.
I mean, but also you can argue for some people, knowing what's coming is actually a way to steal themselves from it. And I know some people who will go into media looking for spoilers because it'll help them get through the media easier. And they'll enjoy it more with knowing what's going on versus like unexpected reverse rape. That's a sentence I just said.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess there are those people that also like read the last page of the book, and I was like, why you ruined the whole thing? Why? So I guess I think I'm the kind of person where like I like to not know. So like for me, I don't want something that's gonna be like, hey, this is in here, but I don't know. I also do feel like it's a marketing thing too, though, because like I feel like if I pick up a book and I'm reading it and I'm like, I'm not sure about this, and then like on the back it's like reverse harem and explicit rape, I'm gonna be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna read that one. So
that's the thing that just happened.
We are a different breed.
like, you know, I mean, that's why I have those open feelings about reviews, is that I was like, even if someone gives me a 1-star review, as long as like they're telling the truth about the book, like that's still a good review, because I've read 1-star reviews for a book before and then was like, all right, I need to buy that one, because it was just like different people like different things, and so it was like they didn't like the content of the book, but like it's not because the content was bad, it's because it just wasn't their flavor. And I was like, I like that flavor, give me that flavor. Like, so anyway, I digress with my thoughts on reviews.
But I mean, you do have a good point that like some people look at 1-star reviews, they see these, keywords, tags, trigger warnings, button pushing notes, and they're like, I see that you did not like this, but this is my jam.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like we have a lot of agreement on using trigger warnings or tags. But yeah. Whew. Okay. More questions. What do we got? I'm over here just like reading this document because I suck at life. Okay. let's go with this one. What LGBTQ stereotypes have you seen in the media, and like which ones bother you the most? Like just like eat away at your soul.
The evil bisexual who's coming to steal the straight person from the relationship. Like, must we? Must we? Must we? Apparently we must.
And maybe, I don't know, the whole, like, the gay man lifestyle, how, like, all the cute ones are out partying and doing drugs and fucking everybody all the time, like, that irritates me because that's not the reality for very many gay people that I know. So I'm like,
Same.
What is happening? Where do you live?
The 80s,
I live in
maybe?
Portland, and that should be very common here.
Oh my god. Or like it's the overly flamboyant femme type, but every gay is that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that's your token gay character, and you know they're gay because they're like super femme, and you're like, well, I know straight people like that, but also not all gays are that way. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Like a personality type is not a sexual orientation, I guess, on that one. But what really sets my fire is kink shaming, okay?
Yes.
Guys, I
I
can't.
appreciate you on so many levels right now.
So it is kind of a funny story. I did watch 50 Shades of Grey before I got into the community, and I rewatched it like a couple years ago, and talk about like extreme rage when there was this point in the movie where like Anna says the most ridiculous thing I could ever like hear, okay? Because I'm a sadist, guys, if I haven't made that clear before. And she basically yells at Christian Grey because she's upset, not because he hurt her after she asked him to hurt her, but because he enjoyed it. And I was like, lady, that's what a sadist is. You just kink shamed him, and I'm over here ripping apart my like TV.
I feel like you just saw the ellipsis on my face. Like, really?
Like it, so mad. She just like straight kink shamed all sadists, and I'm just like, it's not because you hurt me. It's because you liked it. I'm like, but that's why I hurt you. Why else would I hurt you unless it was because I like it? Why would I just hurt you to hurt you?
I mean, I would argue that there are service sadists. You know, they're hurting because you like it.
Yeah, but you know, in that context, she didn't like it. So
no, I know. I'm just saying. I'm just playing devil's advocate in that. Like,
there are people that are like, well, I don't really care to hurt people, but you really like it.
Yeah.
So I'll give you what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that lit my fire. God. And I feel like this next question we might have touched on a little bit. And it's, tell us about some of your LGBTQ plus characters and why you decided to make them LGBTQ.
Well, I guess I'm going to use Daisy Chains as my primary example because it's the book that the world can read. Because I've written a lot of things by day, but nobody's going to read them, at least not anytime soon. So I guess I'll start with, so Daisy Chains focuses again on two teenage girls who are kind of coming to terms with their sexuality. One of them more entrenched in what that means for her than the other. The other one deals with a very homophobic environment at home. And again, like, it's weird because I could have written the same story, like gender identity and sexual identity side. Like, I could have done the same thing with a hetero pair. Honestly, like I said, I didn't really think about it. Like, when I sat down to write daisy chains is just what organically came from me. Like I think I inherently knew that having a lesbian romance was going to get across what I wanted from the story, if that makes sense. Because when I think about like if it was a hetero relationship, I don't think that it would have had the same impact at all. I think it would have been a much more boring read, to be honest. I don't think there would have been anything interesting about that, because the struggles of, you know, teenage girls falling in love versus two teenage male-female falling in love are like very different struggles, right? It would have been an entirely different story. It would not have been dark fiction at all. It would have not been my cup of tea. So my brain automatically goes to that place. Well, what's going to end up? What makes the story more messed up? You know, in the long run, how are you going to really torture these poor people? Like, that's where I come from, I guess. It's not so much like I assign certain sexuality or orientations to people. It's just normally I figure it out as I go.
Yeah, basically that. I figure it out as I go, and also like I don't bother trying to say this is going to happen because I see where things go. I'm, like I said, I'm not a plotter or anything like that. I just kind of write, look back. Oh, okay, that's what's happening. And like for me, I have a story that's coming out that is basically the final girl trope, but the final girls all get together and tear each other apart, but in a loving way. It makes me so happy. I'm so glad I found a home. But you can read, like, the way I read it is a queer poly story about surviving and embracing your monstrosity. But, like, was that what I intended to write? Not entirely, yes. But it makes me happy.
Yes, absolutely. I feel that. And in the comments we have, I didn't decide, she came to me that way. And I'll go with my current whip. Nova is pansexual. She's a warrior queen in training. Liam, her cousin, is Arrow Ace, bodyguard to his warrior queen cousin in training. Love it.
I am here for that.
Right? I'm here for like all the representation. I think for me, God, I think it's like a natural, like, I don't know. It's a natural thing that happens for me. And I think a lot of that just has to do with like the fact that I write the stories that I want to read. And I am literally obsessed with boys love. And I have Project Infinity, which is Tapas weekly serialized fiction that I write. And it's like free to read on Tapas. I'm sure I have it linked somewhere. And the concept of the story is something that I created when I was young, because I used to just tell myself stories to go to sleep. Like, instead of like reading a book, I would just like imagine things in my mind. And this story was supposed to be about two men, a science experiment, basically a human experiment, and the soldier who saves him from this doctor. And over time, it is slowly evolving into a polytriad with three men. Yeah, because apparently now they're poly. One of my main characters, has just figured out that he's poly because he can't choose between these two guys, basically. So I feel like for me, it just kind of happens like naturally. Like, I feel like if I tried to write a straight story, I just like couldn't, because I'm just too queer for that. Like I could not write like a straight vanilla story, because even like writing The Reckoning, where I had my boys love, my male couple, like towards the end, the BDSM stuff just like creeped its way in, where it was like, oh, this guy likes it rough because he's into being dominated. And I was like, That slipped in. I don't know how, but it slipped in. Now it's part of who he is. So, you know.
I mean, I can make a joke about slipping in, but I'm not. It was right there. I'm sorry.
Yes, I did set myself up for that one. But like it just happens. It's like my mind just like naturally goes there because like those are the relationships that I understand and identify with and have experience with. So like my characters are here and they are all basically queer. Because even like I have some straight characters and then I'll be writing and like a thing will come into my mind. I'm like, wait, nope, they're straight. Can't go there. They're supposed to be straight. Like,
I mean, heteroflexible is a thing.
I know heteroflexible is a thing, but I was like, this is like my one straight character. I can't just like.
Oh, it's straight.
Actually, I did cross the line. My character became poly, which seems to be a theme these days. It was like, yes, straight couple. Just kidding. Now it's poly. I mean, I guess technically, she's still straight in the whole liking of men thing. So. Oh man. Let's see, what else we got? The comments. Sexualities are just part of who they are as characters. Didn't really make a conscious decision on it. Nice. I like hearing this. I like that we're all like very similar in the sense of like it just happened and then like that's just who the characters were and like we didn't really like think about it, which I feel like says something about us as writers in the sense that like we're not trying to like force something. And I think that is probably good because it probably makes our characters a little bit more realistic. Because like when you're trying to force something just to like have that representation, it probably doesn't come across very genuine. So I like it. I like to see it. I'm here for all of it. All of the LGBTQ things. All of it. Okay. And I know I mentioned this earlier. If anybody in the chat has any questions or topics that you would like to hear us chat about, feel free to drop them in and we will chat about them. And I think we got through my list. Ooh, okay. Actually, there's one more that I haven't said, and it is, what are some of your favorite tropes or themes in relation to either dark fiction or LGBTQ fiction? Like, what are those things that you see in there that you're like, yes, I love it, give it to me, all of it?
I mean, my absolute favorite, and this has been true all of my life, is the love triangle, which I realize is complicated if I'm pursuing poly fiction. Okay, I understand that. But always the love triangle. Like Twilight, hell yes, okay? I don't care how terrible Twilight is. That love triangle was perfect. Perfect. There is no better love triangle, damn it.
Give me feral people. Just give me people trying to survive, baring their teeth the entire time and growling at you. That's what I want. That is my bread and butter of just, we are surviving in whatever way we want to and whatever way we can, and fuck you if you think you get to tell us how or why or anything. The cat agrees.
Yes, Charlie is obnoxious. Here's Charlie, everyone. He forced his way onto my lap so that he could say hi.
I kind of story here.
I feel the love triangles, except for like, why can't they just be poly? Like, I feel that. I feel that. Like,
I completely ruined it for myself.
I'm like, please, just
why can't they just be poly?
Why pick from the two of them when you could have them both? Just have them both.
Exactly.
And like,
you know what's better than one scoop of ice cream? Two.
Maybe that's where my whole poly thing came from, my poly orientation. Like, just that weird, like, obsession with being in love with two people.
Yeah.
I don't know.
As we slowly inch towards therapy back.
Yes. Yes. I'm also, like, a huge sadist, so I don't know. I like the stories about the monsters, like, the bottom of the barrel, like, I actually changed this in my book to make it a little bit more digestible. But I had a side character who was like legitimately just a violent, brutal being because he's like a Tulak, and like that's like what his race is all about, is blood and violence and like raping people for fun and like telling stories about it in a humorous way that's like obnoxious and dramatic. And I loved it, and I cut it because it was a little too dark compared to the rest of the book.
So they're like flavors from Firefly with a sense of humor.
I like those monster characters. I like those. This guy is literally a serial killer because he enjoys it, but then also has like this like normal life in addition to it. I think it's like the sadist in me where I'm just like, yes, please. Please just be a monster. Be who you are.
Have you read Exquisite Corpse?
Have I read what?
Exquisite Corpse.
No. I haven't read a lot of things. So
look into it. It will be your cup of tea.
I just love monsters.
It's serial killers in love, and they're gay, and they're pointy, and they kill people together, and it's delightful. In the worst way. I read it way too young.
You need to like send me this in a message so I can remember this later, because it is my cup of tea.
I know. Like, you're sitting here talking, I'm like, oh, I hope she's read Exquisite Corpse.
I love monster characters. Like, I always have. Like, I was the kid who like would cry during a horror movie because I just wanted Michael Myers to find love. I was like, just let him have love with his sister in that weird incestuous way, because he needs love too. Like, I'm that dark person where I was like, he has her unconscious in the basement. Why is he not? You know. Maybe I shouldn't say this out loud. Anyway, I like my villains. I feel for my villains because I don't know. I think it's because it's that whole dark side of humanity thing, right? Where it's like we're all like one really bad day away from like serial killing people. Like, I don't know. It's like it's a mind thing, right? Like, things happen, terrible things happen, and they can twist you, and your mind gets like twisted, and then you do things, and like it could be any of us. Like, your neighbor could be that monster, and I love it. So, oh, the things you didn't know about me.
I knew these things about you. It's fine.
I did not, but I'm delighted to find out. This is a good night for me.
Yes, writing mom. Love me some good old couples who have sassy back and forth bickering. Not even gonna hide it. I absolutely love Pride and Prejudice. I was raised on it because my mom had this obsession, so we watched all of the shows. But when I actually read the book in high school, it was so much better. And I was like, yes, between Darcy and Elizabeth. The bickering. Anyway. Yes. Couples bickering. I love it.
I've been delivered food. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Whew. I feel like I got sidetracked. Now I'm just like, where were we? What are we doing? What is life? Oh. All right. I think that was the end of my small like LGBTQ list that I had, that I came up with myself because I tried searching the internets for questions and like could not find LGBTQ specific like related interview questions, which made me sad. But we can just talk about books unless anyone in the chat has something that they want to discuss. And you guys, if you have any questions you'd like to toss into the bucket, feel free. And I'm gonna pull this up once my gotta get it together over here. Oh man. Anyone else been like struggling to write? I should have finished the book that I'm working on like 2 months ago, and I just can't. I'm like can't get myself to write. Like, I know the story, I have it outlined, it's all there. I just can't get myself to type anything. It's terrible.
I managed to start drafting
I
like
haven't been
yesterday, and I was
working
so
in general.
excited.
I'm supposed to be looking for agents, and I'm not. To be quite frank.
All right. Okay, let's see. Good questions.
I feel like someone's going to ask the question, are all of you okay?
No.
No, really not.
No.
Like I'm just over here like, yep, this is me. This is my life. It's rough. It's rough out here. I'm just like,
I'm on the struggle bus. The struggle bus has crashed and burned. It's fine. It's fine. The struggle bus morphs into the dog on fire. It's fine.
you know, now that I'm thinking about it, another thing that I feel like could be portrayed better in like the media is like mental health and like removing the stigma around mental health. Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like stigmatizing it because like we all have problems and like I just feel like I was raised in a way where it was like we don't talk about our feelings and like this wasn't just like a family thing, this was just like a societal thing where it's like people don't talk about their feelings and like it's like if you talk about being depressed then like everyone's gonna look down on you. Yeah.
Mental health portrayals are a thing and a problematic thing like 80% of the time. It's an issue.
Yeah. And
But
I feel
I
like
mean, go on.
I was gonna say, I feel like all of my characters have some sort of mental health problem because like they're all partially me, and I'm like, yep, my characters are just completely jacked up over here.
My characters are not. Also, we're all in a big stew of crazy.
Yes. My main character in my book has a problem with expressing emotions. He has emotional control problems. Just saying, it's a mental health problem. I don't necessarily specify it in there, but it is.
Well, I have bipolar 1, and every time I come across like fiction, whether it be TV, movie, or otherwise, or book, like I'm always wary of what the experience is going to be, because like part of me understands that not everybody experiences bipolar the same way. Like not everybody is going to experience it the exact same way that I experience it in my everyday life, and I have to keep that in mind when I do like consume things like that. But at the same time, there are some really weird things that come up that I'm like, it's not how it is. That's just not how it is. So I don't know, like specifically if I was going to be specific, like if I'm talking about the portrayal of what mania is like, is often either not in my experience or how I would make the assumption as being bipolar another period a person would experience. I don't know. Some of them are just like way off. Like it kind of, because depression I think is a more unfortunately it's a more relatable thing. Everybody's been super sad in their life, I feel like. And so there's kind of like that like hook that you can get where people can kind of go, okay, I get where you're going with this. Even though bipolar depression may or may not be the same, it kind of depends. But mania is definitely the thing like people don't understand at all or have a scope to relate to. They think it's just like, oh, you're in a good mood, you must be manic. Like, what?
No.
That's not how it works.
I mean, I
so yeah,
also,
I guess in terms of like being bipolar, I wish that it was a little better represented on the manic side, because most people just don't understand what that is or what that means or how it can entirely ruin your life.
mm-hmm.
So
For me, it's psychosis. Like, not all people with psychosis are dangerous. Most people with psychosis are not dangerous.
Yes, I feel this. I feel this in a God. What was that movie called with was it Christian Bale? Is it like American Killer or something? American Psycho?
American Psycho?
And it's like he's got such great mental health problems, but like he's also killing people, or maybe not, because we're not sure. He's just hallucinating it. But like, love it, love the movie. But if you really think about it, like that's like representing mental health, right? And it's almost like, hey, people with these mental issues are murderers. And that's not, that's not generally the case there.
Also, can I just say, depictions of psych units are a thing for me. I've been to multiple psych units. I know what they're like. They're really boring 90% of the time.
Yeah. I've been to 3. And yes, they're boring. I'm usually the most exciting part of the entire ward.
Yes, I feel this. I feel this. It's like, I've only ever been to like the one hospital, but like, it's literally just like people chill and like, I don't know.
Yeah, they're not as dramatic as everybody thinks they are.
Exactly.
Or like as scary and fucked up as everyone thinks they are. They're generally not.
I will give it, they can be really fucked up. I will say that. I will admit that. Like, I've had some real fucked up psych unit experiences, but it's a very different flavor of fucked up than what is portrayed.
And I think like a lot of the movies are like portraying what it was like back in the days when they like basically tortured people. Versus like nowadays where it's not,
I would suggest that if anybody writes anything involving a psych hospital or ward or anything like that, they should get a sensitivity reader. You should.
Yeah.
Which is funny though, because like I've written a number of them and a lot of people are like, that's not real. And I'm like, well, then why did I experience it not even that long ago?
Guilty. I asked that question. I was like, I'm pretty sure this is probably from personal experience, but like, I feel like I still have to ask
clothes are real.
Yep, they are.
I was like, this is not like, I did not experience this. And of course I don't have a bunch of experience and I assumed that you had, but I was like, is this real? I'm not 100%.
Be depressed. It is.
Oh my goodness. All right. Random author question. What is the hardest scene you've had to write, and why was it the hardest scene to write?
Like, are we talking like emotionally or like technically?
Whichever way you want to take it. Emotionally, motivationally.
Oh, when I was writing the Inkwell, I pants. That's what I do. I'm a pantser. So inevitably I got to like 175K and I was like, wow, I should really end this thing. Because at that point I was already like, okay, you're definitely going to split this in half. Okay, but you need to figure out where you're going. So I'm like, I'm a pantser. So I'm like, okay, let's just write a little more and see what comes up. And then I was like, finally, I was like, okay, we have to do this. We're stopping now. Like, find something and just spit it out and then come back to it later. Like, let it rest. So finding that spot where I was just like, okay, hard stop. Like, this is where we're done. That was so hard. I can't tell you how many thousands of words I continued after I had made the conscious decision to just finish this thing. And like, I remember writing the scene, like I had accumulated the idea, because I'm a pantser. I accumulated the idea and I'm like, execute. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it down. So I'm like, all right, I got this. Dude, I did not have this. I still don't have it. When I look at that scene, I'm like, what what am I supposed to do with this? So to this day, I am tortured by that scene that I wrote that I don't even like. It's so. I
This
don't
is
even
the thing
know.
that haunts
it's
you
not
at
going to
night.
be the ending. Yeah, clearly. This happened a long time ago. Oh, so I mean that would probably be the hardest because it's still like it technically exists, but it's not. It's a placeholder. I think I got it though. I've been pondering it for a year and a half. I think that I may have it, but then writing, I still have to write it. That's the good part.
And see, what's going to happen is we're going to check in with you at some point in a year from now, and you're just going to be like, "I'm a pantser. I don't know what I'm doing." I am still not sure what the hardest thing I've ever written is, like in any capacity, because I kind of zone out when I write. I'm like, oh, there's a thing in front of me now. Okay, cool.
For me, hands down, it's fight scenes. And I know this about myself. I don't know what it is. It's because they're not as emotional as the rest of the stuff that I write. And I like writing all the emotional internal turmoil stuff in the romance. But like, God, and then maybe that's why I'm stuck, which doesn't make any sense because I feel like I didn't have this problem with the first book. But I am on like chapter 31 of this book, and I am just trying to like write these fight scenes, these big battles, and I'm dying on the inside. And it's so slow. Like
it's gonna sound very. So on the NaNoWriMo server, there's a whole like litany of stuff that somebody wrote for the server on writing, fighting, and poisons and torture and fight scenes in general. There's like it's like novels, man. Like this person, let's call her Fighty Boy, was amazing at putting that stuff together for everybody. And it's really sad because the server is obviously very quiet right now. But like that resource gets like left behind, even though it's like a gem. It's a gem. And if anybody wants to take a look at this gem that exists, go to my link tree. There's a link in the description of this video and hit up that NaNoWriMo server. And there's a whole section designed for that very purpose. I mean, you do have to do the work, you know, as one does, but it's a great resource.
Can I just say I now want to write very, very loving fight scenes where they're just beating the shit out of each other because they love each other?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's like, because I feel like my fight scenes, like, you know, the fight scenes in my first book, I feel like they were fine. Like, they turn out fine. It's just like, I lack the motivation to write them. I feel like the older I get, the more I'm like, skip the fighting and get to the sex. Like,
There.
you know, and I get to not even necessarily sex, but like skip the fighting, get to the emotional drama or whatever. Like,
Get to the emotional fighting rather than the physical.
Yeah. I mean, fight scenes are not my favorite thing to write by any means.
And I used to watch.
Though I don't write very many of them. I think my royalty series is the only. No, that's not true. My vampire series has lots of fighting too. I guess I'm a liar. Don't listen to me.
I liked royalty. Like, I feel like fighting scenes are necessary for stuff. And it's not like I don't like fighting scenes, like reading or like watching. It's just like writing it for whatever reason. I'm just like, can we be done with this? I want to get on to the good stuff.
Harry / done. Moving on.
This is why I
And
can't
then one was hit with the other, have big, strong emotional scene.
Right. I did placeholders. I would just be like, and fight scene, and fight scene, and fight scene, and then I would just, it'd be bad. I can't do that. Oh, God.
You'd lose a lot of K's that way.
Oh, and you know how much I just love to put descriptions in there. I'm like an anti-description person. I don't want to like, I don't know.
An anti-description person.
Yeah, I must be like
Very descriptive of you.
What is that? Like an underwriter or something, where it's like, I don't care about the room. It's just about the interaction between the people. Oh,
so clearly what you're saying is you will never write one character trapped alone in a room with nothing to do and no one to interact with.
Nah. I mean, he could interact with himself. And the room would then lack description. It would just be like an internal monologue of him thinking about his life. Or fantasizing. I could do that. He'd just be laying in bed. Just a generic bed and a generic room. Lost in thought. That's what would happen.
And now, because we're having this conversation, my brain is taking this to extraordinarily dark places.
Exactly. So, the reverse to that question is, do you have a scene that was the easiest to write or your favorite to write?
I don't know, honestly. I guess what's weird to me is when you asked that question, I was like, I don't know. But now I'm like, it's weird that I have an answer for that now that I think about it. It's like, it's been established that I've written a lot of novels in my life. And again, I do a vampire series. And in the second book, it's towards the very end. And I'm only going to slightly spoil it because I don't know if it's ever going to see the light of day. But if it does, I don't want to spoil it. But so it's a fight scene, ironically. But because it's like the end scene, she's trying to force this vampire to have humanity again. And in turn, like, manages to heal her own, like, vampirism, like, in that exchange or whatever. And it's, the reason it's my favorite is because, you know, I had written 3 novels of them being at odds with each other and gotten to a point where they've literally changed each other, right? So, like, I don't know, like, call me a romantic, but I'm like all about it. I was like, this is beautiful. It's under the moon and the stars in the middle of nowhere. Like, it's beautiful. But I don't know. And it's been forever since I've written it now. I don't remember a whole lot about it other than, like, yeah, it really sticks out to me as something that I wrote really well. And I have low self-esteem, so I don't say that very often. I wrote this really well, but I did, and I feel good about it. Also, sex scenes are great. I'm just usually really shy about sharing them. I do enjoy writing them.
So I have an answer to now the previous question and this question. Hardest things to write for me are anything more than 5,000 words. Okay, look. My partners are laughing at me because they understand how true this is. I'm so bad at writing long things. I'm so bad at it. The easiest thing for me to write is anything under 5,000 words.
That's funny.
See, I find that really, we are just opposites in that regard. I wish that I could write more short stories. I get really entangled in long-term story arcs. That's my problem.
Me too.
I read a ton of short fiction, so that helps me kind of figure out how to write it. I don't read as many novels.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I don't read a lot of short fiction, so that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't read a lot in general, and I really should. I'm bad about this. But I do have a favorite scene that was also probably the easiest to write, and I feel like this also speaks a lot to my personality. And I have definitely mentioned this one before, and it is chapter 7 in The Reckoning, and it's actually the only chapter, like, content-wise, that, like, made it from, like, the first version of my book to the third version of the book, which is the final version. And it is a reverse rape scene. And it is a very emotional reverse rape scene where dude's fiance, like, rapes him. Yeah. And that was like the easiest thing to write. It was so, like, emotionally charged. Like, it had description without, like, too much description. and it ends with like him in tears blaming himself, and I love it, and it's so emotional, and writing things like that is just so easy for me. Like, give me the emotional turmoil, the emotional drama, the sex, the violent rape things. Yeah.
I can't wait for you to read Exquisite Corpse. I really can't.
Yeah, that's my favorite scene. I also like love that character, so he's got a long road ahead, guys. Yeah, that says a lot about me, I feel like.
I know for me, like, sometimes stories can very much be therapy. Like, I have written, I have heart stories, and some of those stories are very much like, yes, I am working through my shit by putting other people through different shit. This is entirely how I cope.
Yes, I agree with this. I'm like, I don't know. I always like cycle back to that whole like writing what you know, and I'm just like, well, you know. But I don't know. I also just like that dark aspect. Like, let's rip a person apart from the inside out. Oh, man.
Well, and for me, there's something interesting about like writing from the person who's ripping that person apart and exploring that power, especially when you have been someone who has felt like they've been ripped apart.
Yes. And I did not write it from the attacker's perspective. It was definitely from the victim's perspective. The victim just happened to be a man.
Mm-hmm.
Which also doesn't really get representation, so.
No, it does not.
And that wasn't even intentional. It was just the scene that I wrote, and I was like, this is what's happening. And then I get comments on representation. I'm like, yeah, I did that. I did that on accident. But yeah.
Accidentally on purpose.
Yes, accidentally on purpose. It was on purpose, but because the character needed it. It needed to happen. Ugh. Okay. Ugh. There's so many random questions on this list, guys. Let's see. It's like that time of day where I start to get really tired also.
I understand.
Okay. What perspectives or beliefs have you challenged with your writing or one of your stories or whatnot?
My own or other people's?
It could be either.
I don't know.
Right? Like, I'm sitting here struggling. I'm like, I don't know. Oh, I can think of one that I've kind of done something with. So
Sorry about my fire trucks.
I promise it's not that alarming.
I was like, what in God's name is that?
Sorry.
I'm just like, what did I do? I did nothing wrong. Please stop coming for me, fire engines.
I was like, stay quiet. In my head, I was like, it's so loud.
Oh my goodness.
But no, I was gonna say something about the good disabled person, and then I just got distracted.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Like, there are certain portrayals of disability that you're either And I guess, okay, I was born completely blind. I got some sight back. I lost some sight. So I've been back and forth, and people very much think that, well, there are only certain ways and certain behaviors people with disability should have. And like, I dye my hair on a regular basis. No, this is obviously not my hair, but I dye my hair on a regular basis. I am blind. People will say, like, why do you do that? You can't even see what you're doing. I'm like, first off, blindness is a spectrum. Second off, who the fuck are you to tell me these things? Third off, go die in a fire. But I wrote someone who was very angry and disabled. And that's not something you see that often. And people don't want to think, especially people, like certain kinds of people shouldn't be angry about the things that have, affected their lives. And I'm like, apparently hand gestures is all I got.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
Like, especially in the current world we live in, like with how inaccessible things are still. Like, I have feelings about the pandemic, one of which is, welcome to what it's like to be disabled when you can't leave the house for whatever reason. Either because you're chronically ill, or because you can't drive, or because you're going to get sick because you're immunocompromised. That's everyone got a taste of what that was like this last year.
Yes. Absolutely.
Sorry, that was a minor rant.
No, that's absolutely a fair point there. Like, it really is. Some of us, though, were extremely introverted and happy to be secluded to their house.
Oh yeah, I am a recovering agoraphobic. Like, it's been great and terrible all at once.
Yeah. Like, it's not like I hate going out, but like, if COVID taught me one thing, it's that I am perfectly fine spending every day in my house with my partner, going on walks in the neighborhood, and like not being around people for like long periods of time. Like, we can swing that, which is interesting. But I was like, I forgot what my question was.
I'm so sorry.
No, I remember now. It's the perspectives or beliefs that you've challenged with your writing. So I actually do have, I think I challenge a lot of different things in my books, at least based off the reviews people have left, because a lot of the social issues I think are just in there, and I don't necessarily like realize that I put them in there as intentionally. But my whole series is kind of built around challenging the whole good versus evil thing and the whole black and white like thinking or spectrum, in the sense that like good is good and evil is evil. And it's a very like, it's woven into like the whole story, where over time you find out that like what's good doesn't necessarily mean that it's good, and what's bad doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad, and it's more of a mixed bag of morally gray and questionable people, which definitely questions the whole perspective of everyone's born naturally good or whatever, or naturally evil. I guess people believe this on both sides of that spectrum, I guess. But or even just like the perspective of what people consider to be evil, because sometimes what one person thinks is bad, the other person thinks is just and right, and it's all a matter of your perspective and the other things that are going on. Like, everyone has their own cause that they're fighting for, and sometimes those causes conflict, and each side thinks that they're right and that the other side's wrong, but really, like, no one's right or wrong. It's just different perspectives. So, which I think is interesting. So I like writing that kind of thing where you're like, oh, this guy, he's clearly evil. And then you find out what's really going on in his life. And you're like, oh, he's just trying to protect his family. He's just trying to save his children.
I mean, everyone's villain is someone else's hero.
Yep. That's why I like dark fiction.
I'm a fan of villains that like you like. You're like, because like they're just either like charming or whatever it is. Like, if you can see past the fact that they're assholes, like, it's a good villain.
Relatable, realistic. They're people. Real people. Oh, man. All right. Let's see. Any other questions? I don't see any questions in the chat. I don't know if there's anything else you guys would like to talk about in relation to LGBTQ stuff or dark fiction or how that translates into your writing. Oh, you know what? There is a question I totally forgot about. And it was, have you faced any adversity in relation to being LGBTQ author or dark fiction author, like, you know, people giving you crap for it or whatnots?
I have not had that experience. I am actually blessed to say.
Not in writing. I have had bad experiences just being queer in, you know, the world. But not for writing, actually.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I wonder if that has to do with like the whole self-publishing thing, though, because I did look up some stuff and it seemed like there were a lot of issues in relation to like, you know, LGBTQ authors not, you know, being overlooked by publishers and stuff because of that. Obviously, I haven't had any of those experiences because I published my own book. And so far, I haven't had any kind of negative interaction with people. I mean, most people, in fact, have been like happy about the representation in my book. So I feel like if anything, it's like kind of been the opposite, where people are really happy about the LGBTQ content that is in my novel. And so far, everyone's been supportive, but we'll see what happens, because my mom bought a bunch of books for the family, and I was like, Mom, I told you this was dark fantasy, right? And that there was gay romance in there. Okay, just. I wonder if I mentioned rape to her. I probably should have if I did.
That is something you should probably mention, yes.
No,
I was like,
pretty
wait.
sure I bought a copy for my mom. I should probably check in. I don't think I told her any warnings. Here's a good flaw.
By the way,
I mean, to be fair, I'm like, hey guys, just like read the reviews before you buy the book, because like the reviews will tell you what's in there. But yeah, I probably should have mentioned that. Honestly, I just assumed my family would buy the books just to put it on their shelves to say that they had it and not ever actually read it, because they're not really the reading type. But also, if they do read it, they'll probably just like never talk about it. I feel like I have that kind of family where they'll just be like, don't ask, don't tell. We'll pretend that we didn't read what we read.
Nod, smile, and skate past the conversation.
I just won't ask them if they read it. Just let them have their copy with my name on it. They just want to be proud.
I'm so glad my parents didn't actually read the book. I don't want to have that conversation at all.
Oh, see, I'm like just really openly honest about everything, which is like probably just like as good as it is bad, because like I have no filter anymore. Like I don't know. I spent too much of my youth trying to like pretend to be someone that I wasn't because I felt like I had to fit in with society. And then like once that breaking point happened, I was just like, nah, this is me. And I'm not going to lie about anything. So, yep, I'm in the BDSM community and all that good stuff. And mom's like, don't tell grandma. I was like, well, it's not really something you bring up in casual conversation. But like if she directly asks, like, she'll get a truthful answer. So, you know, is what it is. Like, I guess that's our don't ask, don't tell policy. But I was like, Mom knows. That means Dad knows too, right? I'm sure that's how that goes. Maybe. But. So many things. So many things. All right. I'm not sure how late we want to go or need to go. It's been at least an hour. It's getting close to 2 hours. And I don't see anyone in the chats. And yeah. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? Any questions you guys want us to answer? Anything like that?
I got nothing.
Nothing. I got nothing. I mean, to be fair, those questions that I came up with earlier actually like took us a lot longer than I would have thought. I was like, man, I only got like 10 questions right now.
They made them work for us.
But yeah, I don't know, man. It's like you just sit here and talk about poly life for like 10 hours. That's interesting, right? But yeah. I know, because I feel like we could answer any like regular author questions too. I know.
Oh, yeah.
I know. I published a book. I know Blue's got a book published. And I know you got stuff published on a site thing. I forget what they are. I looked at it. I swear. But yeah. Oh, it's good times. I'm just over here like crashing. Tomorrow is Wine Fest. Tomorrow is Wine Fest, guys. So I will not be.
You will be far off with the wine.
Right. I won't be writing. I wanted to get more writing done today than I got done. I might have gotten close to 2K words, which is not great, but a lot better than the rest of the week combined. So there's that. Yeah. I'm trying to finish this book by the end of the day Sunday, so we'll see if that happens.
Go, right, win.
I blame the fight scenes. Like, I feel like what's going to happen is once I get done with chapter 31, like the next couple of chapters are going to be real quick because, like, they're not fight scenes. They're like the emotional turmoil and resolution of all the things that got built up and love confessions and shit. So the good stuff. The good stuff. All right. Well, I'm not really sure how to close it out. I don't know if there's anything you guys want to mention. I think all your channel informations or your links are below so that anyone watching can follow you guys. I know I got some book links on there for our stuff as well. But yeah, any final words from either of you guys? Anything you want to say before we
write something weird?
Go write something weird. Perfect.
I have no words of wisdom.
No words of wisdom. Okay.
No words of wisdom. No wisdom from Blue today.
Well, in that case, I just want to thank everyone for hanging out with us tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed our chat, and you can get in touch with us by checking out our links below. Me and Blue run a Discord, so if you're looking to talk to us, that's probably the best place to find us. And good luck and happy writing throughout this write-a-thon. And everyone have a wonderful night. And we are peacing out.